And he's trying to teach them to live in his presence, but not his physical, so they can't see. So, well, that doesn't sound near as useful to disciples as when Jesus was physically present. But suppose Jesus were physically present here with us at a discipleship seminar, like we've got here. And then when I take him back with me to Kentucky on Sunday, well, you're going to be here in Georgia. Here's the good news. He can go back to Kentucky with me and be right here in Atlanta with you. Be with one of my kids in Hungary and another one in Uganda. You're not limited anywhere in the world. So, the promise of the presence of Jesus is a fabulous thing for us here, and we've got to cultivate that. And praying and talking to Him is all part of that process here. And so praying, started on this, I just assume like He's physically present, and there's to remind me, Jesus doesn't need this, but to remind me, when I sit down to have my devotional time in the morning, I usually will pull up another chair, just like Jesus, if He were physically present, was sitting there. This morning I was sitting at a dining room table, having my devotions. I pulled back another chair on the other side. Just, not because Jesus needs a place to sit down, but as a reminder to me, this is who somebody like a real person was sitting here. A real person is there, he's just not physically present. Now you may not need those. I get in my truck to go home, I clear off the front seat and talk to Jesus occasionally, back and forth, all the way from here to Kentucky, as a reminder that He's there. Now you may not need those right now, but I find them helpful. I just share them with you. That's part of learning to pray and cultivate those relationships with Jesus in special ways. The third means of grace here on this list, Jesus, is fasting. In verse 16, when you fast, this is the way you do it and the way you don't do it. Fasting is was something the early Methodists built into their regimen. Wesley started having his people fast on Wednesdays and Fridays, and usually it was till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so basically you fasted breakfast and lunch kind of things, and it was a pattern in their lives. Most of the guys in my discipleship group, you know, we're fasting at least 2 meals a week. There are a variety of ways to do this. Purpose of fasting is, one, so that even good things in our lives don't control our lives. And when you fast, you're doing without something. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. God intended for us to eat, to stay alive. But you know how easy it is for food to get a hold of us instead of us getting a hold of food. And the fasting is just a reminder. Hey, are even the good things under God's control? And am I living a disciplined lifestyle that pleases God, so I am living more healthy, and I'm blessing God in physical kind of ways as well as spiritual and intellectual kind of ways as well. So, fasting becomes a valuable part of those that kind of pattern. So, that's the means of grace here with regard to what God is after in our lives. Then, the thing about means of grace is that we all know we ought to do this, but it's not always easy to do it. So we need some kind of accountability. best thing that helps people get started in a regular devotional time is that they got to report every week. Did you get in your devotional time every day this week? And did you get it all in? And knowing I'm going to report to a group of other fellow disciples who know I may be having some struggle in this area, by being accountable, that helps me do what God wants me to do, what I want to do, and what some other people do. When I'm reporting in, then I'm more consistent. Do we not do that same kind of thing in most workplaces? There's a certain time you're supposed to be there, and certain responsibilities you have, you're accountable to somebody else up some line of accountability here. Not just because people are standing over us wanting to hurt us, but it's part of helping us do what we're committed to doing. Well, accountability isn't people standing over you with a big stick to club you in the ear if you don't do something. It's a support group around you saying, how can we help you get God's best? And that's what happens. So accountability is the next thing. And then the last thing here to talk about on this is this whole matter of a band of disciples. That God has not called us individually, He's called us collectively to be committed to each other in this matter. Jesus doesn't train disciples individually, He trains them as a group. And by being in a group of disciples, I'm calling it band here, it makes it possible for life-to-life sharing. It makes possible for me to use the means of grace and learn from others how to use all these means. And it makes possible a context for accountability where it's support, family kind of accountability, helps me do what God wants me to do. Now I've reversed the order of a couple of these so we're able to create here an acrostic. We're calling it the Lamb principle. Following the Lamb, following Jesus, is going to involve these 3-4 things. And if we're serious as disciples about following Him in this way, then this opens the door to following Him closely and getting God's best.